Hello, and welcome to oh, hello, and welcome to the first out of two MEX Season 32 presidential debates. We'll be your moderators tonight. Yes, the two of us, Ben Poliphile, and Adam Evans. Tonight's debate will be held in Cleveland at Case Western Reserve University, and it'll be broadcasted by MEX CBS. We thank both the venue and the broadcaster. Adam? Sorry for the delay. I'll just read his line. So before everything, let's meet the candidates. These two men have waged long-term campaigns.
Yeah, all right.
Over the past week, both eagerly fighting for the highest office in the land. One of them will be the next president of the United States, the commander-in-chief, and the face of the nation to the world. So without further ado, here they are. To your left, we have Democratic nominee Robert Sanders of New Hampshire, former president of the United States, former representative and senator, and former vice president under Quentin Lewis. In the center is Republican nominee Roman Thaddeus of Texas, the former Senate president pro tempore, former senator from Jefferson, representative, candidate for vice president in season 30, and former CIA director. And to the right is Libertarian candidate Harvey Long of Maine, former representative, vice president, and noted elections YouTuber. Adam?
He's gone.
He's not in the call? Okay.
He left.
The rules are as follows. In the terms of time, every candidate gets 1 minute for opening and closing statements. For every response, candidates get 1 minute and 45 seconds for follow-ups, also known as rebuttals. Every candidate gets half a minute. Any candidate can follow up a certain maximum number of times, and that is every candidate has one. Let me reiterate. Every candidate has exactly one follow-up or rebuttal. You can follow up to any answer unless it is an opening or closing statement or one specific question to a candidate. The order of questioning was randomly decided by the roll of dice. The candidates in their questioning shall take turns. And lastly, a candidate shall not interrupt each other or the moderator. And if the candidates go over their time, they will hear a sound, which will indicate that their time is up. The candidates have agreed to the rules before the debate, and by a coin toss, the candidates will be doing their opening statements in this order: Sanders first, Mr. Sanders first, Mr. Long second, and then Mr. Thaddeus at third. They will take turns in every round. So first of all, we would like to begin with opening statements from each candidate, which will last roughly 1 minute. Mr. Sanders, you go first.
Thank you, Roman. Mr. Long, it's good to be with you here this afternoon in Ohio. Last night, we had a fruitful discussion on the issues, and tonight I look forward to expanding on my vision to once again make America a beacon of light for the world and to restore the sense of community here at home. We mustn't live in fear of our opponents or the ideas on the other side. We mustn't lessen the dialogue to a point where we can't have civil discourse between people with opposing beliefs, and we must have leadership committed to maintaining our nation's ideological diversity. We must lift up voices that have been put down for so long and bring them to the table to unlock that true sense of diversity, giving everyone a chance to be heard. If we are to meet the moment we are in and pass landmark reforms and transformations that will put America at the top in the 21st century, making it one of the common man, we must elect someone who is willing to do everything in their power to get that done. Brett Patrick and I are leading a movement to do just that, and on Friday I hope that I will have earned your support in doing so I can get to Washington and once again fight for you and uplift the common man, creating a pragmatic, worker-centric government that will bring America to the top in the 21st century. Thank you, Ben, for hosting. Let's get to it.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Mr. Long, welcome to the debate. May we hear your opening statement?
So we all say that the mock election community is great, which I will agree with. However, there seems to be a huge disconnect between focusing on legislation legislation and focusing on community issues. We have experienced this trend for the last few months where more people are actually leaving the community than joining. Our activity level is extremely low for a community of 300 people. Our elections, they should some work there
They
here
could
and
use
there,
some
but I
work, and
think
we
the
must
general consensus
create
is
and
this
enact
community
change
needs to
in that
focus
area.
on community issues for a season. We need to allocate some time towards advertising the community, getting
We
more people
must
into the
create change.
community, and
Must.
solving more community-based issues. I do believe that this is a mock election community where we are mocking elections, but we should never ever forget the fact that we are a community and we need to sustain ourselves. And I highly respect the other two candidates on the stage here. However, we really need to allocate a season to community issues. And if I'm elected president, I will do that day one till the last day in office.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Mr. Thaddeus, your opening statement.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you, Ohio. I'm on my daily jog today, so if you can hear the wind outside and the noise of the great outdoors, I, of course, apologize for that and will be keeping my mic off when I am not speaking. I'd like to welcome Mr.
Yes.
Long to this debate. It's great to have new voices and different voices talking from
Okay,
all
keep it moving.
sides of the political spectrum
Yeah,
or community
we all have
spectrum
red
about what
lightsabers.
they have
Yeah.
to say.
Love you too.
Look, my campaign comes down to
What?
one word, and that's vision.
Bro.
I believe that I have the vision to lead this great nation by promoting the initiative of cutting taxes and promoting economic opportunity in this great land. Mr. Sanders' vision, which I, of course, have great respect for, has been tried 3 times. The choice that this election comes to is whether you want to try another round of Mr. Sanders' vision. Would you like to try my new vision? Or would you like to try Mr. Long's vision for the community? I hope that in this debate, I will be able to outline why my vision for a freer, more libertarian society is the right way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thaddeus. The first category of questions will be purely on ideological grounds. The first question of the bunch is, what do you consider to be your greatest weakness or your greatest problem? How do you think it will impact your governing if elected president? Mr. Long, we'll start with you.
I think my biggest problem is my persistence. And I've experienced this for quite some time now. I think over time it's gotten a little bit better, just being around more people and experiencing arguments and whatnot. But my persistence seems to be one of the biggest setbacks for me as a person. When I want something done, I will do anything and literally anything to make sure that at the end of the day, that thing gets done. In terms of my governance, it could probably be a hard ladder to climb for many in Congress, especially me as president. However, I am sure that with the amount of development I've had mentally, I will be able to overcome that and rise to the occasion.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Hold on just a second. Mr. Sanders, your response?
I would say my biggest weakness is my passion towards the principles of justice for all and providing the basic needs that all Americans need for them. But over the course of my entire career, I have gotten better on that issue and grown to understand the need for compromise in governance and the difference between an election where you put up all your principles and all your ideals and governing the country of 360 million people plus to create and transform the United States to be a prosperous and unified nation once more, leading the world to creating a century of peace. But we can achieve that, and despite our weaknesses, all of us have them, and all of us will always have them. We can come together, unify, and create a better government for all. And we will do that in this election, and despite any of our weaknesses, I have the full confidence that whomever is elected will do just that.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Mr. Thaddeus?
Oftentimes, especially during certain parts of my Senate term, I always would get into these little squabbles over these little details in certain bills in a negotiation. The difference between cutting something by 6% or 4%, and those sorts of things, though all in good intention, have often led to me being labeled as an obstructionist or whatnot. When in truth, all I seek to do is to stand up for what I believe in. However, I've learned from this. I've learned from many people I've negotiated with, people like I would say Ethan Fitzgerald, on how to to come to better terms on this sort of issue. But if I had to say that if I had one weakness, it would be my sort of inability to just stray away from just looking at the one little nook and cranny in a certain piece of legislation. And I feel like that could be problematic as president, but you could also see it as a strength. It's a double-edged sword, but I hope to work on it and make sure that it becomes beneficial and not something that will hinder the progress of the American people.
Thank you, candidates. Now we'll move on to the next question, which will be presented by moderator Adam Evans. Adam?
Yes, I believe. Who does this begin with? I believe it begins with Roman.
Yes, it's in the doc. It starts with
Uh-huh.
the first letter of their last name, the order they go in.
All three of you have had large periods of personal activities, and some of you even left Mech in the past. How can the nation trust you to serve the entire presidential term and be a committed and active president? That question first goes to former Senator Roman Thaddeus.
Well, look, I've honestly never been more inactive for more than a month. Ever since I really, ever since I would say the summer of last year, I've been very consistent with how active I've been. I've been quite fairly active in this community, and I wouldn't say that, one small period of time about a year ago really, outshines the immense progress I've made towards being active. And in these certain times, I've served in many small positions. Though I'm the legislator, I've served as CIA director and Secretary of Defense during periods that could be called inactive, where I sort of faded into the back scenes of mech politics. And I think that those times were very important for me, gathering experience in the all-important field of national security. So, personally, I think that this is, I really haven't been too inactive on this front, especially, compared to, I think, other people's breaks. I love this community. Sometimes I've sort of faded into the back scenes to focus on real life issues, but voters can trust me because I've been active for a hell of a long time, and I will continue to be as president.
All right, that question now goes to former President Robert Sanders.
Thank you, Adam. That is a very good question. All of us have had, as you stated in the question, and as Roman just stated, and I'll reiterate it, periods of inactivity. I've had family emergencies and personal issues that have led me to not be able to run for an election that I want to run in, or have to resign from a House seat because I will no longer be able to fulfill the duties that I ran on. But I've always been honest about that, and that has been the case for all three of the candidates on the stage. All three candidates have been very honest, proactive, transparent, and trustworthy people throughout their careers. That's what I've done as president. That's what I've done as a senator, as a representative, as acting secretary of state, so on and so forth, an advisor to many people. And anyone that actually knows me and works with me knows that I'm an active and committed member of this community who has consistently thought about ways we can improve and work on this community, come together and make the real tangible change that we all seek. I can promise the American people I'll be active because I have spent the last 2 weeks preparing for this presidential campaign, writing a totally new and improved 21-page platform with a whole host of agendas and lists and visions, not just for my presidency, but for Democrats and people all across and down the ticket. And we will, through this movement, not just my candidacy, but the movement of all the candidates and all the people who believe in that vision, create a new America. And I am 100% committed to that vision. Ever since I came back from my summer break, in which I was in no position no elected position and no unelected position where I did do nothing but I did observe, did nothing but observe. I am now back from that, and we will be 100% committed to that.
Robert, your time is up.
Uh,
That question now goes to former Senator Harvey Long.
I think one reason why people should trust that I have as much commitment to this campaign and my presidency if elected is because I've always stayed in MEC when I am mentally capable. You can see within like the last year and a half now, I've done these little mental health checkups where I'd explain how I'm doing mentally, and how this will affect my standing in the mock election community. And I do this not only because I want people to know how I am, I would do this because I want to make sure that while I'm in this community, while I'm making other people smile, I'm also making myself smile too. And I think this is something that a lot of people in MEC should take the time for every once in a while. Taking a break, which I've done, I think, at least a good 4 to 5 times within the last 3 years. I have taken breaks so I can focus on myself, give myself some me time. And I think it's very important that people in this community do so as well, because if you did what I did 2018 and stayed here overnight, talking to people and whatnot, it's gonna get to you really quickly. And um, I will continue to do those mental health checkups. I will continue to do everything I can to make sure that while I'm here, making people smile, making this community fun, that I'm also doing the same for myself too. And when I'm elected president, I will make sure that it stays that way.
All right.
Are there rebuttals or no?
we
Yeah, I was about
we
to
can do
ask if
rebuttals,
there are
yeah.
any rebuttals.
Okay,
Does
well
anyone-
then,
would you like a
may I
rebuttal,
issue a
Mr.
rebuttal?
Thaddeus? Yes.
Sure. So, just going on this point, I'd just like to, quickly just ask Robert, you just came out of your summer break, is it really truly wise to run for the presidency immediately since, take the season 31 campaign. You didn't really do all that many rallies for Mr. Uberfell. So I'm just curious, if you just come out of your inactivity, how does that compare to a record like mine that has been inactive ever since I first got into the Senate and before that when I was the FBI director?
I'm not gonna engage in a debate in which it's my summer break where I was honest about my inactivity and said I was going to be inactive is being questioned. I'm now back. I said I'm back. I chose to run for the presidency. I won the Democratic primary with a vision for the future, and I just simply think it's not a productive discussion to question periods of inactivity when every time I've been in elected leadership, I've been a proactive, transparent, and trustworthy leader who has, when needed to be inactive, been honest about that and then moved forward and always been active.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Sanders. Mr. Long, this is the last chance at a rebuttal. Would you like to do so?
No rebuttals.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to our next question, which is, what would you eat to each candidate? What would you consider your ideology to be, and what would be its flaws in your view? Mr. Sanders, we'll start with you.
Well, as most people know, I find myself left on the spectrum, but I don't subscribe to what would be known as the Twitter leftism or the anarchism that is found in a lot of left-wing ideologies, or the anti-government sentiments in those areas. And I find that those are the real weakness with the left. The left has a losing mentality in that it never wants to seek power. It's always a cynical view of the world as compared to capitalism, when in reality the American people are looking for a visionary future forward where we can improve upon the system that we have created and create a government that works for everybody, a pragmatic, worker-centric government that passes major labor reforms and major reforms in a number of sectors of the government that will improve this country once and for all. And what I'm trying to change in the left is just that, and I'm trying to improve on those problems. And when you have ideological leaders like myself, like Mr. Thaddeus, like Mr. Long, who are standing up on this stage, fighting for their principles in a strong-mannered way, we can really start to get stuff done because we start to improve on the problems that each ideology has, which the core of is a lack of civil discourse on the issues, and we can actually start to get that done by engaging in civil discourse as opposed to bad faith attacks on
Thank
either
you, Mr.
side. That's
Sanders.
not pointed to either any candidate either. Bad faith attacks on either side.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Mr. Long, your response?
I completely agree with Robert in that point, that I think the left has this tendency for not seeking power. And to be honest, if they did follow that route and they did try to seek power, I guarantee you lots of needed change would be made into multiple governments and multiple societies. And I think daily life would have been a lot better if they did follow that track. Now, when it comes to my policies, I'd say I'm pretty center. It's been this way for a long time now. I would say that in terms of like abortion, I'd say that I am somewhere around pro-choice. I don't feel like as a man I should be making the decision for a female at all, regardless of the circumstance. When it comes to immigration, I'd say I'm somewhat against immigration. I'm not really comfortable with the fact that people can just run into our border and just make it our home like right away. I'm not really comfortable with that personally. And when it comes to guns, I would say that I'm kind of against guns, to be honest. There's no reason why you need a gun in a city where there's cops like every 5 minutes running down the street or driving down the street to correct what I said. There's no reason why that should be the case. And it saddens me that these conservatives, so no offense to the hard leaning conservatives, it makes me sad that these conservatives believe that they should be carrying guns outside in the streets. That's just a problem right there, and that's when it really starts to cause more problems rather than solving them.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Mr. Thaddeus, your response to the question about ideology and its flaws.
Sure. So personally, I'm a libertarian in principle. I believe that we should limit the role of government, because I believe that we can trust the individual more. I'm an individualist. I believe in the role of an individual. I believe that some of the fallbacks of hardline and complete libertarianism, though, are that we can leave our most unfortunate citizens behind. That's simply unacceptable in America. You know, we're the greatest country in the world. We should be able to pick everyone up, not keep them down. That's why I'm a moderate libertarian. That's why I support compassionate capitalism. Okay, we can have a free market that promotes, that grows our economy, that makes life a great place in the United States if you can build yourself up. But we also need to protect our nation's poorest. We need to have strong social safety nets, and that's why I support strengthening our social security system and keeping the welfare state that we have in this country. But on the other hand, we also need to expand on the vast opportunities we have to grow our great nation's economy, while at the same time cutting the role of the federal government, letting the states decide more, letting the towns and communities decide more. Because for me, that's the most democratic way. You know, I think that a president elected with 51% of the vote who lost one region of the country, I think they have a less of a mandate to influence the laws in that region of the country that they completely have no support in. Okay, that's why I support giving more powers to our governors and to our people. So, I've gone into the weaknesses of libertarianism, but I think that when it comes to a matter of freedom and liberty, that is the ideology that I support. That's what the ideology I stand by.
Thank you, Mr. Thaddeus. Would anyone like a rebuttal to any of the question? Any of the responses? Any rebuttals, anybody? Is that going to be a no? I guess so. All right, we'll move on to the next question in that case. This is the last question of this particular round. It is actually 3 questions directed at both all the candidates specifically. So, Mr. Long, we'll start with you. Many of your critics have said that you're simply not experienced enough to be our next president, especially in terms of policy. You briefly served as a representative mod as well as senator more than 2 years ago. In your view, do you really think you're experienced and tested enough to be president of the United States?
In terms of experience, I'd say that me being in this community for a lot longer than people who are mainly making this argument, I'd say I'm pretty experienced for that. Would I say that I would do a good job at this office? I'd say I'd do a pretty good job, to be honest. I think one thing that these critics fail to realize is the way that their expectations work doesn't really apply to me personally, because I'm known, even in real life, I am known for being a lot different than expectations would say that I am. And it really doesn't make sense when people apply expectations of other people and put it onto me personally. What I did 2 years ago and how I acted 2 years ago, or the way I acted last year, or the way that I acted 8 months ago in terms of political office, is in no way a representation of how I will do as president of this community. I have developed a lot since those times. I've grown as a person, and I've learned a lot of things, even in the hard ways, that I shouldn't have done in the past. And to all those critics who have fears of me being president of this community because of stuff that happened or stuff that I didn't do in the past, I'm asking them to give me faith and give me the courage to do the job. Because if I'm elected to office and I have no courage, there's no passion to do anything. We all need to be on the same page, even if we have disagreements. And that's all I leave at that.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Mr. Thaddeus, you're up next. During your time in the public eye, you have always presented yourself as someone who is extremely tough on China. You spoke very negatively about them, supported the Uyghurs Human Rights Initiative, and you were very skeptical of the Fitzgerald-Athens Agreement with the Chinese. You seek to have a naval show-off with them in the South China Sea, and once you even suggested harsher economic sanctions combined with high military alert state. Don't you think that you're simply being too tough on China, given that China is a huge economic partner with the United States, and you brand yourself as someone who promotes free trade? Don't you think that such a policy would cause grave difficulties for the rest of the world in terms of the militarization between two superpowers?
Look, I think that this is a very, very important question. First of all, when it comes to the matter of military, I have not stated I support an increased military buildup in the South China Sea. I have never stated that. I think the best way to work things out is diplomacy, and if that doesn't work, we need to support our allies and make sure that they can protect against Chinese aggression in that area. But you know me, I've advocated for defense cuts. I've advocated for non-interventionism. When it comes to the matter of just my relationship with China, look, the way I see it personally is that I may have what I believe, and I think that many Americans should believe, that the People's Republic of China is not really the legitimate government of China. The legitimate government is the Republic of China, which is mistakenly called Taiwan, but the Republic of China is the legitimate government. In my personal view, I see the CCP as terrorists. But here's the thing. Here's where we draw the line. We're going to have to work with them, because that is the realistic scenario here. We can't just go to war with them. We can't just leave them in the dark. No, we have to work with them, and we have to recognize that they're a major world power. So, yes, I support free trade, although on a more limited basis with China. I think that we need to be more cautious when it comes to China.
Just to follow up to that.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, you're good. But just to follow up to that, Mr. Thaddeus, you said that you think the Republic of China is the legitimate government of China. Are you advocating cutting off economic and diplomatic relations with the CCP, given that you believe it is the illegitimate government of China?
No, Mr. Poliphile, I've just stated that realistically we're going to have to work with them. Okay, so we're going to have to trade with them. We're going to have to talk with them. We're going to have to work with them diplomatically.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Do you? But
But
how? Oh, I'm sorry. That's well. Just let me just ask this one more follow-up question. Don't you think that China would be adversarial towards you if you declared the Republic of China as a legitimate government? And how do you expect to work with them if that's the case?
there will be no official declaration from my office that they are the illegitimate government. All I stand by is that by a personal principle, and by the principle of many Chinese Americans living here who despise the Chinese Communist Party. That's what their belief is, and I totally understand that. But at the same time, we're going to have to work with them. I'd be willing to work with China, no matter how much I despise their position. And that is the situation we're going to give, and I'm sure we can broker peace, no matter what we may think of our respective countries.
Thank you, Mr. Thaddeus. Now turning to Mr. Sanders. Mr. Sanders, as president, you have experienced a lot of contentious and divisive events, both at home and abroad. In your very first presidential term, you faced the so-called Turkish situation. During that crisis, it was pointed out a few presidential elections after your term, that you negotiated with terrorists who captured the U.S. embassy and took hostages. Later, you said that it was your strategy to negotiate with them, get them out, and make them feel they got what they wanted, and then kill them. In a sense, that happened. However, at the time, your Secretary of State and Defense joined you in the praise for your actions, and where you, according to them and yourself at the time, did not negotiate with terrorists. For the record, Mr. Sanders, did you negotiate with terrorists? And as President of the United States, how would you handle another hostage situation?
Hold on, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right.
Mr.
Good.
Sanders, your response?
Yes. Well, in my view, I did not negotiate with terrorists. What I did was I coordinated special ops with a number of intelligence agencies and the military, including the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of State at the time, to trick the terrorists in order to get them out of the building, separate from the 15 hostages that they were had captured in the building at the time, because of the lack of intelligence in the embassy at the time. We had no idea what the second floor looked like, no idea what the number of people were in the second floor, and the only way that I felt to safely execute the mission to save all hostages, which we did, was to covertly open up a line of communication with the terrorists, pretend to work with them in order to get them out of the building, which we did, and then get them on the tarmac to a plane which was never going to take off, which special ops team was waiting for them at the tarmac, and then took them all out. And I have commended and still commend the valiant efforts of that special ops team, killing every single terrorist. And I commend the efforts of the intelligence agencies and the military, the Secretary of Defense, and the Secretary of State for operating the mission to save every hostage and doing it in a very, very good way. We saved as many lives as we can in the moment. We cannot expect everything to be perfect, and the fact that we saved all 15 hostages means I stand by totally that event and stand by the decisions made in that event, and the terrorists were never, ever going to safely leave that country. The terrorists were never going to get the benefits of what they wanted implemented, and the United States still holds true to its mantra not to negotiate with terrorists in their pursuit of their own personal interests.
Yes, but just a quick follow-up question on that. Do you even if it was a strategy to use to kind of trick them in some sort of like fake negotiation, do you believe that the optics of negotiating with terrorists sends a bad message to the world? Do you agree with that viewpoint?
No, I think the optics sent a bad message to the electorate, and I would totally agree with that. I think the electorate viewed that in a negative way, as they would when you're not actually in the Situation Room, and I totally understand and respect everyone's individual position on that. I believe that world leaders around the world, and I was commended by the Prime Minister of Canada and the sorry, blanking on the last one, but we were commended by the Prime Minister of Canada on those efforts, and I believe the world saw that and realized that the United States is once again engaging in thoughtful 3D chess on the world stage instead of creating further divides in already hostile parts of the country. And as a response to that, we worked with the Turkish government in helping to quell those uprising and quell those threats. And we are the terrorist threat, while still ongoing in the world, is still is going down because of the efforts of my administrations, of the Evans administrations, and of the pragmatic, thoughtful leadership that we exude. I'm not
Thank you.
concerned about. Oh, okay.
Yeah, your time is up. I'm gonna have to head out, everybody. Thanks
Yes,
for your time.
I think we will be transferring this debate from Ben's to mine. So I will be asking all the questions now.
All right, I'll see you guys later.
All right. Are there any rebuttals to any of those questions? No? All right. We will be moving on to the next issue, national security. There's only one question for this category, and it will start with former Senator Roman Thaddeus. What would be your direction on the issue of national security? How would you combat global terrorism, domestic and abroad? That question first goes to Roman. Okay, I guess Roman has left. That question first goes to Robert then.
Can you repeat the question? Oh,
Sorry, I had to leave. I was getting a phone call.
All right, you're fine. Yeah. Did you hear the question?
What?
Did you hear the question?
No, I was having a phone call.
All right. What would be your direction on the issue of national security? How would you combat global terrorism, domestic and abroad?
Is that question directed to me first?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Well, first of all, there's no one more experienced in the field of national security in Mech than I am. I've been trusted to serve as FBI director, CIA director, the Secretary of Defense, and in fact, Robert appointed me as CIA director back in season 26. So, if there's anyone who really knows this issue of national security, it's me. The best thing we got to do is we got to be promoting on-the-ground intelligence, but we also have to make sure that our role in fighting terrorism abroad meets halfway between America's role in the world of being the arsenal of democracy, as well as not stepping our bounds and being an overly interventionist, hostile power to the rest of the geopolitical world. That's not going to be right. So it's all about meeting that balance that we have to have, and my heart goes out to those killed in the terror attacks in Canada, and let it be known that I have the best experience in this field, and if there's something that you should consider the issue of experience on, whether it be domestic policy, because we all have that, we all served in the legislative experience. I understand national security. I know national security, and our terror strategy will be sure that we work with our allies to make sure that no terror attack happens again, and the best we can do to prevent those attacks.
All right, that question now goes to former President Robert Sanders.
thank you. I would actually say that I would make an argument that I have a little bit more national security experience, having served as president 3 times, having served on the subcommittee of peace as the chairman of that committee under Speaker John Uberfeld, having served on the Foreign Relations Committee in the Senate, having served as PPT in the Senate, working with both the Fitzgerald and Stevens administrations on foreign policy, and the House on a co-branch approach towards the Iran crisis, in which we got that solved. And I would say that I have a myriad of experience when it comes to foreign policy and national security, and my record and career proves that, just for the record. And I would deal with national security and the terrorist threat in a number of ways. Specifically, just for an example, with the Iran-Saudi Arabia Cold War, which is fueling much of the terrorist sentiment in the Middle East, and which does not help at all the Israeli-Palestine situation, which is another big deal that we have to get done. We must work as a mediator, as I stated in the last debate from Ben's question, to bring Iran, Saudi Arabia to the table to once and for all try to bring this issue to a close, because this has not been done in past administrations. Yes, Kenneth Quinones led the effort on ending our close buddy-buddy relationship with Saudi Arabia, and I commend him on those efforts, but we must go further by bringing Iran and Saudi Arabia to the table to quell the violence in the Middle East, because the Middle East has the potential to be a world superpower, and we must unlock that potential and decrease the terrorist threat in doing so.
Robert, all right. That question now goes to former Senator Harvey Long.
Okay, I think what's so disgusting is the fact that both candidates believe that they have the requirements needed for national security. Personally, I think the best way to solve national security and solve all our threats is to bomb them all at once. Just kill out everyone. Evacuate all the good people. Evacuate them from the vicinity and just drop a bomb. Just deal with all the issues, okay? This is not, we cannot deal with this, sit in the table and have a 15-minute conversation with our enemies. We can't deal with this shit. I'm just saying, we need to bomb all of them at once. And that's the way we can solve our national security threats. And like I'll say it, it's a quick way. It costs less money, and at the end of the day, it solves all our issues.
All right.
Can I get a rebuttal to that?
Can I get a
Yes, you can, Rob.
Thank you. While I respect your opinion, Mr. Long, I do disagree with it. It does cost, just for the record, it does cost more money to continue to manufacture bombs and continue endless warfare in the Middle East just to try and police these issues, because policing these issues has not worked and continues not to work for decades. What we must do is stop the American foreign policy of economic warfare in the pursuit of exploitation of resources for poorer nations, and change our foreign policy towards that of a beacon of light, to be a leader of the world, once again regaining our superpower status by fixing our relationship with these poor and low-income countries that have been exploited and colonialized for centuries. And we do that by bringing them to the table, which has not been done, Mr. Long. And that costs less money, because when we fund the State Department and we fund these critical diplomatic efforts, we can get this done.
Can I also do a follow-up?
You can. Mr.
Yeah, thank you. So, first of all, a lot of what national security has to do is it's an economic issue as well. You take China's Belt and Road Initiative, and it's going all over the place. It's affecting a lot of places, which are often affected by terrorism. Okay, and the best thing we can do to prevent terrorism, well, I'm sorry, not prevent terrorism, to, I think, preserve our national security. Because to me, the Belt and Road is a national security threat, because as China gains more and more allies, it weakens our standing in the world. We need to have America be strong, but carry a big stick, and that's why economic incentives are needed in those countries.
Your time is up. Yeah.
Can I get a rebuttal to that?
No, each candidate only has one rebuttal. Harvey, would you like a rebuttal?
No, I have no rebuttal.
All right. I enthusiastically agree with Harvey on this issue. Let's move on to the next question. And
Bias moderator.
Huh?
You just agreed
Adam,
with
just
Harvey
check
on
the main chat, please.
Since Roman only has 15 minutes left until he has to leave, we will be cutting down the debate response time to a minute 15. So hopefully each candidate can keep their statement in a reasonable time frame, so we can wrap up this debate fairly shortly. So I will be moving on to the next question, which will begin answered by former President Robert Sanders. One of the most consequential and important dates for the world has been when our country successfully used a nuclear bomb. Ever since we've had them, since Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we have not used them. There have been many presidents who have sought to reduce or even increase our nuclear capabilities. Most notably, and most recently, President Ethan Fitzgerald moved to denuclearize the world. He wasn't successful. What do you think our policy should be on that matter?
I would continue the fight to denuclearize the world because that is the only way that America will maintain leadership throughout the world and become a global superpower once again on the geopolitical stage. If we come to the stage saying we're going to continue to build nuclear weapons and proliferate warmongering and weapons of mass destruction, then those small countries like North Korea that are going to have to, those small countries like North Korea and Iran are going to have to continue to pursue nuclear weapons programs in the pursuit of the defense of their own country. And we must end this by committing with other countries to denuclearization. Will this be easy? No, but I have a history alongside President Fitzgerald and alongside a number of other strong foreign policy leaders in this country of bringing together the world to pass international agreements that do just that. And I will make sure that denuclearization and the pursuit of peace, while still having a strong and capable military to enforce such peace when necessary, is the direction that this country takes. And a Sanders administration and the progressive House coming into that will be hopefully elected in this next House election will do just that by rebudgeting these issues towards a diplomatic approach, as I stated in the last question, and we will continue to pursue the denuclearization of the world and make the 21st century one of peace.
Your time is up, Robert. That question will now go to Rome. That question will now go to Harvey.
Okay, sorry about what I said about nuclear weapons, the last question. I really think we should ban them because my alter ego obviously doesn't got it at all in right, you know? Personally, I think the fact that we haven't used nuclear weapons in like 60, 70 years is a pretty good sign. Hopefully it stays that way because we don't want any more people dying. Personally, we should keep things that way. Just put all the nuclear weapons in some sort of facility, lock it all up, and just bury it like 15 feet in the ground. It'll just solve all the issues. Okay. The last response did not solve all the issues. In fact, it made things worse. Okay. And I think we could probably solve more issues by hiding all our nuclear weapons in Antarctica. Okay.
All right. The question now goes to former Senator Roman Thaddeus.
Thank you, Adam. You know, there are many people, many conservative people who say that nukes keep the peace, but I'm not one of them. I think that the best way to promote peace in the world is a showing of laying down our arms. As long as we can work with our adversaries, we can get our nuclear stockpiles reduced, as long as Russia and China come to the table and agree on a certain percentage of denuclearization. I think that a world with no nuclear weapons is the ideal. The only thing that needs to be done is fostering peace, and that's what I want to do with my non-interventionist foreign policy. That's what I want to do with my cuts to defense spending, cutting the procurement of nuclear weapons. So we need to work with those countries. This is about a diplomatic, about a peaceful foreign policy, and I'll be able to work with countries like Russia, like China, which I have stated my opposition towards. But we're going to work with them because we need to reduce the nuclear stockpile in this country and countries abroad, and that's how we're going to make a more peaceful world. That's what the Thaddeus administration will do.
Can I get a rebuttal to that?
You may.
Thank you. The fact of the matter is, Mr. Thaddeus, while I respect that sentiment and I look forward to seeing you work on that, no matter the outcome of this election, you cannot expect to bring together the world when you use inflammatory language such as calling the government of China, the active government of China, no matter your personal opinion on the issue, a terrorist organization, and then in the same sentence saying you're going to work with them. China is listening to this debate. They hear the words out of your mouth, and when you get onto the table in those negotiations, as I have been in multiple occasions, not just in my presidency, they will not listen to you.
I have a rebuttal. I have a question for Roman
Frankly,
Thaddeus.
I'd like to.
I have,
Okay.
I have a question for Roman Thaddeus. If you
All
had
right,
the
it first
option
goes to
to work with
Harvey since
ISIS,
he
would you
requested
choose
it
to
first.
work with ISIS?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question?
If you had the option to work with ISIS, would you work with ISIS?
No.
Thank you.
Is that all?
Yeah, I'd like to pick up where my rebuttal. So Mr. Sanders has attacked my ability to negotiate with the Chinese because of the personal feelings I may have towards the Chinese regime and towards personal feelings that many Americans have about them. But China understands the need for peace in the world. As long as America does not proceed with a foreign policy that makes official these words and what I've said here today, which I will not do, of course. That's not credible. That's not credible for our diplomacy, and that's not good geopolitically. China knows how to work with other nations, and they will be able to work with the United States under a Thaddeus and a
Your
Sanders
time is up,
administration.
Roman.
Can I get a rebuttal to that?
No, we're gonna move on. Since everyone has got their rebuttal, since Roman has to leave in a bit. We'll be moving on to a few economy questions, and then we'll be giving closing statements. So this question will first go to Harvey. Why are you a better choice than your opponents to create the kind of jobs that will put more, or create the kind of income growth that will put more money into the pockets of Americans?
Because what you need to understand is they're taking the job a little too seriously. I think personally, I'm trying to focus on community issues and whatnot, which I think is a pretty serious topic, of course, because we need to grow members and get more activity and get more events and whatnot going. But to be honest, like, this is kind of hurting a lot of Mech people's feelings, to be honest, because we need to grow the community, and we don't really get the option to grow the community when we are focusing on serious topics like this. Like I said, I will push for one term as president under my administration. I will get everything I need done in one term. And after that, me and Nick Silver, we will resign. And whoever's the Speaker of the House, they get to be president. Hopefully, it's Kenneth Keownaz. Just saying. Now, personally, like what I said, I will push for one term. I will get everything done in one term. Unlike a lot of the people on this stage, or one of the people in this stage, and a lot of people in this community who's pushed for one term and instead has gone for multiple. Ethan Fitzgerald making that statement, it's not
Harvey, your
war,
time is
but
up.
war is very wrong, and at this
Harvey,
point, it won't work.
your time is up.
Thank you.
I believe that question now goes to Roman Thaddeus.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Could you just repeat the question one more time?
Yes. Why are you a better choice than your opponent to create the kind of income growth that will put more money into the pockets of Americans?
Sure. So I've always stood for the idea. I've always stood for creating economic growth, and that's what I've done in the legislature. I have promoted policies that have grown our GDP, that have reduced our GDP to debt ratio. I've stood for fiscal responsibility, and I've stood for cutting taxes, which will create jobs in this country, and those will be good union jobs, which will pay. I'm sorry, got caught up on my words there. These are going to be good jobs that are going to be paying a lot of money, because I'm sorry, getting caught up here. My tax cuts will be able to stimulate economic growth because we're going to create a trickle-up economy where people are going to have more buying power, which will create more jobs because those companies are going to have more revenue incoming, so that they'll be able to hire more, okay, and they'll be able to expand. And creating that expansive economy is going to grow jobs in this nation, and that's what I will do as president.
All right, that question now goes to former President Robert Sanders.
Sorry, again, can you repeat the question? I just want to get the specifics.
Why are
right.
you the candidate as opposed to your opponents to create the kind of income growth that will put more money to the pockets of America?
Right, thank you. The modern economy is based on a dog-eat-dog mentality, total individualism. total individuality, where profits are prioritized and workers are treated like cogs in the gears that turn to achieve the goals of the elite few, but transforming our economy and giving the power back to the people is not a pie in the sky idea. It's not radical socialism. We can and will make it happen. And that's what will happen under a Sanders administration. We will increase the income of Americans by putting more money back in their pocket, by decreasing their personal expenses, their private expenses, their taxes, by making sure that people under the poverty line aren't paying exorbitant amounts in taxes because they are working class Americans just trying to get ahead. What we are going to do in the Sanders administration is totally unlock the communities, making sure that there's upward mobility in this country, once again, making sure that people are able to spend in their local economies, spurring local businesses, growing up the local economies, and creating that sense of community that I talked about in the beginning once again. We had this once in America in the 1950s, but not everyone had this. Not everyone had that dream. In the 2020s, we have the ability to provide that dream and provide that world for every American, regardless of race, gender, or creed, and that is exactly what a Sanders
All
administration
right,
would
your
do.
time is up. Since former Senator Roman is cut short on his time, we will be moving on to closing statements. To wrap up this debate, I believe that goes to Roman first.
Thank you, Adam. This has been a very set of productive debates. We've had our highs, a couple lows, but I think that again, this election it comes down to one word. It comes down to vision. Now, you can vote for Harvey and his plan to grow the community. You can vote for three-term Robert for a fourth term and select his vision for a fourth time. But my belief is that we need something new. I think that an agenda that focuses on the individual, on individualisms, and on tax cuts, I think that is the agenda that's going to work for the American people. And as president, a Thaddeus Delaney ticket will deliver that better bargain for America. Thank you.
All right, that now goes to Robert, former President Robert Sanders.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Harvey, for participating. Roman, for participating. This has been a fruitful discussion. These past debates have been an extremely substantive, policy-focused discussion, despite some of the attacks that we've seen on both sides. And as a consequence, this election has been one of the more interesting and engaging elections that we've had in the past few seasons. I'm running with a vision for the future. It's not just about a fourth term. It's not about how many times I've served. It's about a new perspective. It's about a new perspective forward for this community that I have worked for my entire career and that other presidents have continued to work for throughout theirs. And we will continue that message of progressivism to grow our community, to once again make MEC great again. What we will do in a Sanders administration, as outlined in this debate, is create a pragmatic, worker-centric government that works for everyone in this country and not just the few. And what we can do in doing so is become a superpower throughout the world, creating prosperity in the African Union, growing our influence over the Chinese One Belt Road project, and solving a lot of the terrorist issues and national security threats that we now face as a consequence of our foreign policy and economic wars. Again, I thank for a fruitful discussion on the issues. I look forward to earning your support on Friday, and I hope for another 8 weeks to serve as your commander-in-chief so we can do these big, bold, progressive things to get this country working again. Thank you.
That now moves on to former Senator Harvey Long.
For the last few seasons, we have been abandoning what's very important to a community, focusing on community issues, focusing on increasing the amount of members we have in this community, increasing activity, adding more events, giving people a reason to be engaged. And at what cost do you do this for? To focus on legislation? Sure, it's an election community, don't get me wrong, but the more we focus on the politics of the community, the more we forget the community part of the community. And this is why under a long Silver administration, we are going to make MEC fun again, and we are going to make MEC great again. Not by passing legislation, but by increasing the amount of people in this community and giving people a reason to be active in this community in the first place. And that's my priority on day one, and that is my priority until the end of my first and only term. Thank you.
Woo! Woo! Woo!
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Thank you, Mr. Long. We would like to thank all three candidates for their participation. We would once again thank the broadcaster and the venue. But most of all, we'd like to thank the audience. Thank you for listening, and thank you for watching. Now it is all on you. In less than 24 hours, polls will open. Well, I think it's more than 24 hours. But we changed the date or the time of this debate, so it will be a little over a day now, and you'll be able to choose who will govern this country in the upcoming weeks and months. Choose wisely, choose carefully. You only have one vote. We hope these debates will help you make up your mind. Thank you, and good night.
God bless America, land that I love.